Hey guys, so this is week 2 of online Canvas. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what you need to do because I felt like this week's directions were a little confusing. So if you have me and Miss Johnson sent out an email kind of outlining what you need to do. Otherwise, this is just a virtual walkthrough of what it is. Now, I put my screen in student mode, that way you can see more so what your page is going to look like, but typically mine doesn't look like this. So this week is called Reading Closely for Textual Details. We had to learn English. So remember that anything in blue is a link, anything in purple is a task. So this week there are 3 parts. Part one is attending to details in multimedia. 2 is how skillful readers approach text, and 3 is approaching a new text. Our learning goals are that students learn to use questions to guide their approach to reading and deeper analysis of text. Students read and analyze informational text. So this first section, you're going to watch this video here. It is from, I believe, History Channel, and it's basically a digital infographic brought to you through a video. The first time you're going to watch this, you're going to use the graphic organizer they give you down below it. You don't have to print this out. You can honestly just make a T-chart on a piece of paper. So you'll draw a line down the middle of your paper. One side will be first viewing, the other side will be second viewing. So on your first viewing of the video, you're going to create a bullet point of events or ideas presented in the order they're addressed in the video. You don't have to get everything, but try and make sure you get those things that you feel are the most important. So try to get 3 to 5 down for sure. It's a very short video. I think it's only like 3 minutes. So 3 to 5 seems sufficient. The second time you watch it, so you're going to watch it twice. The first time you're going to write down what's important. The second time you're going to go through this list and you're going to star the items that you think are the highest priority or most important to your understanding. So you're going to star or highlight the details that are most important while you watch the video. After you finish this, in your second column, you're going to explain why you prioritize. So why did you think those things were the most important to your understanding, and give us some of your thinking. You should only have a couple sentences here, nothing huge. So that's your first section. If you don't use this and you just write on a piece of paper, feel free to email it to me. Just shoot a picture and send it to me in Teams or in my email, and that way I can kind of see what your brain is doing. Part 2 is how skillful readers approach text. And so this focuses more on teaching you a new handout. This is the one that the district gives you. Miss Smithman created a really awesome one that is color coded, and if you would like that, just go ahead and shoot me an email and I will send it your direction. So if you want to download it, you just click this blue link right here. So this first handout we have for you, it focuses on how to ask questions while you're reading a text. So this first section is called Approaching the Text. This will be before you read. So you write down the title, the author, what type it is. Is it informational? Is it entertaining? Is it fiction, nonfiction? Whatever type you determine it to be. And then the publisher, publication. Also, anything you already know. So if you know that this text is written by a Jewish author in 1945, you know it happens during the Holocaust, and it's a firsthand account of what's going on. So there are a lot of things you might already understand. Maybe you've already read the text before. Maybe you know a lot about the subject. So there are things you already understand. The only thing you're going to write in these 2 boxes down here are questions. You're not going to write answers. And that's for you to focus in on what you're trying to learn. So questioning the text. As I read for the first time, I use guiding questions. So your questions might be something like, what does the author want me to know? Or how does the author develop characters? That sort of thing. When you reread, you're going to focus deeper in. So if you're focusing on vocabulary up here, down here it might be, well, what did the author do to tell me the meaning of this word? What context clues did they find? What exactly do they mean when they say this word? So these will be more general, these will be more specific, and both of these happen while you are reading. This is, you saw this last week, but this is just a bunch of different options for you for questions to give you some ideas. Ms. Smithman also made another color-coded version, so if you would like a copy of that that's a little more simplified, let me know and I'll shoot it your direction. So this is they used the handout and they filled it out for the text we read last week from Jacob Reese and his first hand account of immigrants leaving Ellis Island. And so they put the title, the author is Jacob Reese. It was informational. You might also write that it was a primary source so that people know it came from him. The publisher is unknown and the date is 1903 question mark because we know it happened in 1903, but we're not totally sure when it got published. And so what they already understood was it was written in the early 20th century when many immigrants entered the U.S. through Ellis Island. Here she gave different examples of questions. So what's described in details? What do the author's words cause me to see or feel? And what information does the text represent? Down here, her questions are more focused and they're specific to the text. So what is the many-hued procession that Reese describes in line 3 through 7? What details about newcomers do I notice as I read this sentence? Now that you've kind of gotten to know this handout, you're going to use it down in step 3. So the way they put these in 3 steps, you need to know that step 2 needs to be completed before you do step 1. So it says, use one or more of the following questions to help guide your thinking. What words and phrases are powerful or unique? What do the author's words cause me to see or feel? And what words do I need to define or better understand the text? So you're going to focus in on one of these. So what you will do before you read, so before you listen or physically read or both, you're going to open up your questioning text items. You're going to put your name at the top. My name is Mrs. Overland. I hope you all know who I am because you have me in class. The title of our text is On the Trail of the Immigrant. It would help if I moved my mouse so you can see. The author, I believe, is Edward Steiner and Fleming H. Revel. You may need to make it a little bit smaller so you can see. I would say this is also an informational text because it is very similar to last week's. I don't know who sourced it or published it. And the publication date, I believe, is 1906. But again, it's one of those things where I'm not totally positive. What do I already know? I know this is a primary source. I know it happened in the beginning of the 20th century. And there was a high population of immigrants coming to America. All right, so I'm going to go back to my directions so I make sure I fully understand what I'm supposed to be doing. So I need to use one or more of the following questions to guide your thinking. So your 3 options, or you can pick more than one, is what words or phrases are powerful or unique. Remember at the beginning of the year, we focused in on those powerful words. And so this is the time when you might focus in on why they chose those powerful words. The second one is, what do the author's words cause me to see or feel? So what emotions am I getting from the way the author writes? And then the last one is, what words do I need to define or better understand the text? So I am going to choose the second one because I really like focusing in on those emotions, specifically because this is a primary source. it has a lot to do with what they're seeing, what they're feeling, and I feel like there are going to be a lot of emotions that come up with it. So I am going to do, what are the author's words causing me to see or feel? So this will be my main question, and I'm going to focus on this, but while I'm reading, I'm going to come up with more questions that happen. It's just inevitable. It's going to happen. You are essentially going to read this passage twice. So you're going to read it once with this thought in mind, and you might like highlight or underline or star some things that you feel really bring these out. Then you're going to read again and try and focus in more on those details. So on the trail of the immigrant. The other thing I want to point out to you, there are some large vocabulary words in this. However, we have been given a glossary down at the bottom. So if you get to a word you don't fully know, check the bottom. Otherwise, use Google. Because there were definitely some things I didn't know, like trachoma is a chronic and contagious disease of the eyes that can lead to blindness. I didn't know what that was because I'm not well versed on eye diseases. So, on the trail of the immigrant. The barges on which the immigrants are towed towards the island are of somewhat antiquated pattern, and if I remember rightly, have done such service in the Castle Garden days. And before that, some of them at least had done full service for excursion parties up and down Long Island. Okay, there were at least 2 words in that sentence that I don't know. So antiquated, if we look down here, is advanced in age or outdated. So the island is in an outdated pattern. And if I remember rightly, have done service in the Castle Garden days, and before that, some of them at least had done full service for excursion parties. So an excursion is like a brief, like fun trip. So instead of like doing it for work, it might be like going on a fun like boat trip or that sort of thing. So it's like a fun trip. You go on excursions if you ever go to like resorts and stuff, they have excursions, and that kind of means like you go out and do something fun. So the structure towards which we sail, which gradually rises from the surrounding sea, is rather imposing and impresses one by its utilitarian dignity and by its plainly expressed official character. So utilitarian dignity is usefulness or practicality. So it's impressive because it's a big structure. If you've ever walked up to like a serious building in downtown Des Moines or in like Chicago, you can tell which buildings are more important because they usually have some architectural features that let you know like, hey, this is like a courthouse or this is where the mayor is, that sort of thing. So it has sort of this like dignified, well-to-do nature about it, and it serves its purpose. So it has this like official character, when you see someone dressed up or you see someone who's in a position of power, like a politician, they usually have a nice suit on, they have their hair well done and maintained, they look very put together. And sometimes you can see that in buildings as well, especially those old brick buildings like they have on Ellis Island. So with tickets fastened to our caps and to the dresses of women, and with our own bills of landing in our trembling hands, we pass between rows of uniformed attendants and under the huge portal of the vast hall where the final judgment awaits us. We are cheered somewhat by the fact that the assistance is promised to most of us by the agents of various national immigrant societies, who seem both watchful and efficient. So these people are coming in. They only have tickets to get here, and they might have a bill of landing, which is similar to like visa is what we would call it now, saying they can do that. And they have promises from these immigration companies and societies that will help them get on their feet and get started. They seem to be well put together. They're watchful, so they're paying attention, and they're efficient, which means they work really well. Mechanically and with quick movements, we are examined for general physical defects and for the dreaded trachoma, an eye disease, the prevalence of which is greater in the immigration of some statisticians than it is on board immigrant vessels. So they're seeing it more because when statisticians or people who study statistics look into immigrants than they are actually on the boats. From here, we pass into passageways made by iron railings, in which only lately, through the intervention of humane official, benches have been placed upon which closely crowded we await our passing before inspectors. So when I hear this, I think, oh, well, they just put in benches for people to sit down. So prior to this, people were just standing in a line with hundreds of other people waiting to be inspected to make sure they were up to par to come to America. Because even if you came all the way to America and you had your ticket and you were all ready, if you didn't pass certain inspections, like having certain diseases like that trachoma or some sort of other like ailment, they wouldn't let you in the country. So you could travel all the way across the ocean, but you might not get in. So these people have to sit and wait to be inspected by doctors and that sort of thing. So after the sifting process has taken place and children who clung to their mother's skirts have disappeared, families have been divided, and those remaining intact cling to each other in a really tragic fear that they may share the fate of those previously examined. A Polish woman by my side has suddenly become aware that she has one less child clinging to her skirts, and she implores me with agonizing cries to bring it back to her. So she's suddenly aware she has one less kid than she came with. So one of her children is missing, and she tries to get help from this gentleman with these agonizing cries. So when you think of agonizing, it sounds like they're physically in pain. So she is visibly upset. She's sobbing, she's crying, she's screaming potentially to bring back her baby. In a strange world at the very entrance to what is to be her home, without the protection of her husband and without any knowledge of the English language, and with no one taking the trouble to explain to her the reason the child was snatched from her side, somewhere it is bitterly crying for its mother, and each is unconscious of the other's fate. This last paragraph hits me real hard, and I don't know what it makes you think of, but it genuinely makes me so upset because if I think of having a child, which I don't currently have, the amount, like all I can think of is going to another country where they don't speak English. So going to like Japan or going to a country in South America where they don't speak any English. I get there, I bring my kids with me. All of a sudden, my child is missing. No one's talking to me. No one speaks my language. My husband or significant other isn't with me, and I have no idea where my baby is. And so when you think of that as a person, it'd be like if me and my brother went somewhere and all of a sudden, like my brother was missing and I couldn't find him and no one would help me find him. Like it's a very scary thought to not know where you are. And vice versa for the kid, they've traveled all this way with their mother and now their mother's been stripped of them and you don't know where your mom is and you're scared and terrified. There's a lot of emotion and fear on both sides. So this would be something I would pick a sentence out of to put on my questioning text down here and focus in on I would focus in on the agonizing cries because that to me says a lot about what she's feeling and the emotion she sees. Okay, so that was this week's Canvas course. It's pretty simple this week. Next week there will be more to do. Just a warning, you will have to write a paragraph. But I just wanted to say bye. I hope you guys are staying safe. Hopefully everybody has internet access and technology now. It sounds like they've gotten to almost everybody. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out on Teams or email me or any of your teachers. We would love to hear from you. If you haven't yet responded about your personal information to your advisory teacher or your case manager, you should 100% do that because we're gonna keep bugging you. But yeah, I miss you guys. I care about you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and remember 6 feet of distance.